Hey everyone, this is Helene, and welcome to the Vegan Stew. This is our weekly show that happens on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that's where we're at now with daylight savings. And we don't come live on the first Wednesday of every month because that Wednesday you get to see Coach Kayla. So let's say thank you to Terra Seed, who's our sponsor for this month for our talks, which we love Terra Seed. Check them out. They have, if you get our newsletter, they have an awesome promo code that you can use, but I don't remember what it is. So you have to get the newsletter to know that. You can do that just by subscribing by going to virtualvegfest.com and entering your email. If you go to virtualvegfest.com, hit the contest tab, and you can get entered to win one of 7 prize packs that we give away monthly, which is amazing. Follow Your Heart, Hodo Foods, Crafters Organics, Terra Seed, Revolution Gelato, Cinnaholic, and Orgain. Kimberly, be proud of me. I got all 7. I was practicing. I kept forgetting Cinnaholic. I don't know why. But if you live within 50 miles of a Cinnaholic, you can win a $50 Cinnaholic gift card. How cool is that? Nobody else gives away prize packs like we do. And of course, we love our sponsors and we love you too for watching. We have an excellent show tonight, your Vegan Flava, which is hosted by Dawn. And of course, our current events and whatever else we want to talk about. We love for you to be a part of the conversation. So make sure you enter your comments and questions, and we'll definitely address them. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're not, go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell so that you can know when we go live. So let's bring everybody on. It's Dawn, the Vegucator. Let's see. We've got Marla from Vegan Street.
Hello.
And we've got Katya from Total Body Lab.
Hi.
And and we've got Kimberly from Did You Bring the Hummus? We were hoping Laura would join us tonight because Laura in Northern California is dealing with a thunderstorm and possibly a power outage, which is sucks and not normal. So there's a whole vegan conversation right there. And then Sangeeta
Right.
will be back in January because she's in India. Oh wait, so Dawn. Well, Dawn, Marla, who wants to go first? Start us off.
Marla. Okay, I will. Well, I had a couple of news stories that I thought were relevant for our audience and for our conversation. One is that there's a dairy company called Cool House that's LGBTQIA positive. I think that's the first time I remembered all of the letters in a row. And woman owned, and they were just a regular dairy company or dairy, ice cream company with a couple, I think, of non-dairy options, but they have been, they are transitioning to a fully vegan line, no more dairy. They got bought out, and in accordance with their sustainability goals, they are transitioning to vegan, and it will be very soon. So that's really exciting, and I can't even imagine the challenges and the complexity of such a thing, but it's really exciting to see that happening. So that was the first one. Cool House, starting with a COOLHAUS. So that's exciting. The second story is a little more nuanced, and it was something I heard on NPR the other day, maybe a few weeks ago now at this point, but I think it's so pressing because one of the common tropes that we hear about eating meat is that if you eat it locally grown, like locally grown beef or whatever, then it is more sustainable than, for example, if you were to eat imported vegetables. Well, the actual experts who crunch the numbers on carbon footprints, food carbon footprints, say this is actually very much not true. And they're not necessarily vegans or coming at it from a vegan point of view, but food production is responsible for 80 to 90% of the total food carbon footprint. Transportation is only responsible for about 2 to 5%, which is not to say that we shouldn't be trying to eat more locally, but it is to say that we overestimate how much we can minimize our footprint by eating local meat. So anyway, I thought that was an important point to be become educated on, so that we can disabuse people of that very common trope. And that's actually one of Vegan Street's most recent memes is about that subject. So the person, the expert on lowering your carbon footprints actually said, this was the event in Scotland. She said, when it comes to your carbon footprint, while haggis is a traditional Scottish dish and she understands the cultural relevance of it, she said pasta and vegetables is going to win anytime over meat of any sort. So I thought that was really significant, and that if you eat imported vegetables, it still is going to be lower than local meat. So anyway, I thought that was important to talk about.
Awesome. Hi, Yuko.
Well,
Welcome back.
Thanks for sharing that. I had a thing about these. Can you go back to did you say the carbon footprint is for all transportation is only 2%? Where did that come from?
When they're talking about the food carbon footprint, not just
right. But you said the transportation, all the transportation combined. So
right.
What did you say that was?
What's that?
What did you say that was? Because I want to make sure we have information that's, we can verify, right. Because I don't know if that number doesn't sound right to me, that percentage.
Yeah, that was from someone who actually is contracted by businesses to, they calculate the carbon footprint of individual dishes for companies, food businesses that are trying to shrink their carbon footprint. Right. So they look at it almost like a nutritional, they look at it in the same kind of way. They calculate it. So this person, this is on NPR. This was somebody who was at the UN climate conference as an expert on this field. He said it was only between 2 to 5% of your total food carbon footprint is transportation.
Food carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I thought you meant, okay. So thanks for clearing up. I was like, let me get to my note cards here. We're going to talk about that.
Right.
That was a perfect segue. So yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
So Helene, am I going now? Am I a go? Am I green lighted? Hi guys. Let's go. Let's get into the vegan Flava. So
let's get it.
I'm because it was kind of the cousin of what Katya did last week, because Katya did the vegan spectrum. So she made me work harder because I had to think some more about exactly how we were going to frame this. So I thought that we could talk about the vegan Flava as a group from the economics of vegan Flava. And then we could talk about those subsets. And then we could talk about the ethnicity, the cultural things, the history, the taste, the accessibility, and those things, and why it's an age, even ageism, age as it relates to, making the change, and the economics of it from a GDP standpoint in the industry, and how much money's really coming in and what we're really talking about. So I wanted to kick it off by saying that, 9.7 million Americans are vegan. That's a 3,000% increase in 15 years. So let's clap that up, because that's a 3,000% increase in 15 years. And that is phenomenal, because we're really making big headway. And we moved industry, because industry is now $4.2 trillion plant-based industry, $4.2 trillion. So they're really after our dollars. I don't know, that's a good thing and a bad thing, but it also helps the animals and it helps the environment and everything else. So I wanted to get you guys' opinion based on those numbers and the $4.2 trillion. I wanted to talk a little bit about how that economics impact you. Do you see any movement in your community on more people buying at the grocery store, more plant-based things happening? And are there flavorful options there when you go? Or is it just the stuff in the store? And we're going to get a little deeper, but I just want to get into that. Okay, I see a spoon and I see Katya.
Thank you. So
then I see Marla.
Last year, I made a change that I never thought I would. I moved to a tiny little town that's called Hillsboro, mainly because my gym shut down, and I found a really good gym here. It was an amazing strongman and powerlifting gym that had all the equipment that I needed, and you could actually train in a mask during COVID. So I moved here. The town is 7,500 people. So it's tiny. And I was like, cool, I'm moving to the redneck land with only meat and beer and beards and trucks and flannels, and the election was going on. And I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure I know the surroundings that are going to be happening. And I was really pleasantly surprised that there were Black Lives Matter protests here. We celebrated Juneteenth as a city. People came out to see that. The election signs were pretty much half and half, blue and red. And almost every single restaurant here has plant-based options, except for like one Italian joint that doesn't look tasty to me anyways. But it was shocking. It was shocking. It was shocking in a good way how it was really, people were really accommodating in most areas, in most, restaurants, bars, in a grocery store. Like I shop at Food Lion. I've never shopped at Food Lion before, and I could come in and buy some things, but they have a plant-based section there. I can get my favorite silken tofu that was only available at the Asian store before. The shelf stable ones.
Yeah.
Sure I'm the only person who comes in and is like, whoop, and just gets a sleeve of that tofu until they restock it next time. And then nobody else gets the tofu. Sorry, neighbors.
That's wonderful. So you found in your small town of 7,500 plant-based option in restaurants, in your grocery store.
Yes, and everywhere.
And a lot of embrace of a lot of the political Black veganism issues of Black Lives Matter and those things happening even in small towns. I mean, so because veganism is bigger than just food. So that's wonderful. That's exceptional, because a small town, we just dispelled a myth that only in big urban cities do you get a lot of this vegan movement, and that's not true. Marla,
exactly. I thought I would be hopeless here, and it's been okay. It's been much better than I expected. I mean, my expectations were just such trash that anything would have been better. But yeah,
Lord, I got you. That's good. That's good though. But Marla, you had your
I was just going to say that I think that a lot of what we're seeing is that vegan products are becoming less isolated to certain sections of the store where non-vegans don't shop. So it's just becoming more integrated. So I noticed myself, like I, live in the Chicago area that's been pretty vegan friendly for a long time, but like it seems like I'm taken aback when I see like dairy in someone's cart. It seems like almost everyone buys non-dairy these days, no matter what. I do have like a cool little story. Is my former sister-in-law, so she's married to my husband, or was married to my husband's brother. She opened a tea shop in this kind of mid-sized city or town in Minnesota called Mankato, and she asked me if I knew of some recipes, because she wanted to offer some vegan pastries at her shop. And so I kind of put it out there to my friends, like, what do you, and this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Anyway, I had this Facebook conversation, asking people, do you have some recipes that you think that non-vegans would love for, cookies and pastries and stuff? Anyway, Laura Van Zant, who works for the Herbivorous Butcher in Minneapolis, saw the conversation, and she's a Facebook friend of mine. So she jumped in, and almost immediately, now Heidi, my former sister-in-law, her shop, Curiosity, started carrying Herbivorous Butcher sandwiches and wraps and stuff. And they became, and there's like a small university in Mankato too. So they became like the spot for the vegans, and her daughter has opened an all vegan tea shop of the same, the same brand and name and everything in another town called Winona. So just through this one conversation that I just happened to have, on my Facebook, probably would have happened anyway, but I think it facilitated it. But anyway, she's just so grateful. And she's now in her shops, because there's not a lot of vegan visibility or access to specialty items. She's now going to have a dedicated section where people can buy like jackfruit and various sauces and stuff that they like. So it's kind of exciting. Anyway, I just thought that was
cool. Well, that's a great story to add into the conversation, because it shows that how important what the work we're doing is, because we all have to do our part. So Helene, what's happening?
I want to go back to Food Lion. I don't want to
Yeah.
say I hate them.
Why?
Because until that store will sell a frozen organic vegetable, I'm not shopping there. Go look, there's not a single frozen organic vegetable in Food Lion. And I questioned them about it. I commented on like a Food Lion post or whatever, and I got ridiculed by like, the rednecks. So, but the the easiest thing to stock in a store is a frozen item. So
But they
yeah,
have
I get
vegetables. But they do have vegetables, and
they
they
have
have produce,
vegetables, just
and they
just
have
not
produce.
organic, frozen organic vegetables. And
Okay, so you
it
hate them.
annoys me.
We
I'm just
got
throwing that out
we
there.
take a note. Take a note, everybody. Helene is
Okay.
anti-Food Lion.
I'm
It will
sorry, I'm
not.
gonna have
They
to
will
shop
not be.
there.
They will not be at any
I
fest
know
that Helene does. Okay.
they've come a long way. They've definitely come much further than they have, but I don't understand.
Yeah,
They have the whole vegan section, but they don't have a frozen organic vegetable.
Can you
But
take an organic
that's
vegetable
true.
that's fresh and freeze it?
of
Is
course
that
you
not
can,
how
but
it?
Yes.
sometimes it's
Okay.
not always
Yes.
convenient.
Okay.
So,
Okay. On with the show. On with the show.
no, no,
I
no,
see
no worries.
Tilted.
So
Yeah, Tilted Planet. I'm sorry. Go
back
ahead.
when
Go
I
ahead.
lived in California, being Jewish, I went looking for Hanukkah candles. And I was in Northern California, I was in the Bay Area. And this was, I'm in year 10, that was 17. It was like 24 years ago. And I I come from Long Island where my last name in the phone book when we had phone books was Pages. And I'm moving to Northern California. My last name in the phone book there was like 3. And I never felt like that before. I never felt like I was in the not in the majority.
Right.
And right, so I went looking for Hanukkah candles because it was December, and I could not find them like anywhere. And that's like the first time that I was like, I don't understand. Like, why is this not here? And it changed over the 7 years that I lived in California. But when I first got there, it was it just I finally understood what it was like to be a minority in a population, because I was not like Judaism was not popular in the Bay Area at that time 24 years ago. So I mean obviously it's minuscule comparatively, but it's interesting to experience.
Hmm.
And that has nothing to do obviously with veganism and food, but does have to do with
Right.
my culture not being represented in an area which now you would never ever think it wouldn't be. We're talking the Bay Area,
Well,
Silicon Valley. So,
right. But we're definitely going to get to the cultural aspects when we get to that, and I think that's important. It does play into the religious aspects. I think it does play because that's a part of humanity. You have to be humane to people's culture. It's not
yep,
just the food, and it's just not the animals. It's also, and it's not just the health and the environment. It's also the humanity of people. So
yep.
yeah, that plays in. So we'll get into that in the cultural side. The other thing, I'll just get off economics because everybody wants to talk about food and taste and all that stuff. But I don't know if we knew a good note for folks that the everyone knows probably the GDP we could is $3.7 trillion of the GDP, which is over 25% of healthcare costs in the United States pre-COVID, went toward the top 5 chronic diseases, right? So that's and that's indirect costs mixed together. If you just went with direct costs, which is people being disabled or dying, that would be $1.1 trillion. If we all went plant-based, we would save $1 trillion of that money. Yeah.
Wow.
So just imagine
Trillion with a
economically
T?
that trillion, this $3.7 trillion, according to a Millikan Institute study. Millikan Institute, I'm a stats person, right? To give the data. Millikan Institute study from 2016 that has been updated in 2018. That's why we got the 3.7 trillion. It was 3.3 trillion at one point in 2016. In 2018, they did another study. That is the indirect and direct costs. Indirect costs would be a loss of work, productivity, right? Which is why some of the stuff is backed up in barges and you can't get it because people are sick and dying, right? So if we went plant-based, went vegan, went whatever, if you're not eating animals, which makes you voluntarily helping to veganism because you're not eating animals. Even if you're not trying to wear leather, you're still helping by not eating animals or participating in the slaughter. Could save $1 trillion a year. And if you think it doesn't affect you, if you're a tax-paying American, that's $5,600 of money that you're paying a year, an aggregate value, and your taxes toward people being sick from diseases we can prevent by changing the plate. So what we're doing is very, very important. I wanted to bring that in because the vegan flava can also save money, not just save lives of animals and all those other things. So I just wanted to bring that to fore and wanted to jump. If you guys have any feedback on that, not sure if we knew that or if any of our guests who are watching knew that. Big savings can happen when you go vegan. And it's important. That's why it's important when you meet somebody vegan, you talk about flavor. You have to get to know what people like so we can capture them and keep them. We don't want to be like, get them in and then lose them, right? So unless anybody has a question on that, I want to go on to or any comments on that. I'd love to move over to the cultural side. Anybody have anything?
I'm just blown away by the number.
The number's high. Yeah, and we're one of the biggest spenders on healthcare and with the largest deaths, and we're still losing 1.7 million Americans a year pre-COVID, even though we're spending that much money.
Right.
So in the time that we air this show, 192 people will have died for the hour that we're on. 192 Americans. Doesn't matter that they're American; they live here. I don't have the worldwide stats, is why I said American. Okay. So that's just it. So it just brings into perspective when you have someone's ear, be really conscious of a lot of different aspects of things. It's an economic thing, it's an environmental thing, it's a food thing, it's a health thing, and it's a flavor. And you've got to know what people like because you got to get them, because you might be the only chance they'll ever hear, like Marla's person, that they might hear something and it might change their life, right? So that's what happened to all of us, or else we wouldn't be here, right? So on to the culture. Yeah, money's money. Anybody want to chime in on that, please do. But we can save a lot of money. So you're spending $5,600 a year and you're not even sick, and your taxes, aggregate value. So let's get to the good stuff. Cultural aspects of vegan flava. A lot of times there's the ethnicity. I want to talk about the ethnic aspects of it, and the cultural significance. So for Helene, since we talked to you a little bit about the Jewish community, if you wouldn't mind, just share with folks, how important is food? Is it a landmarking community, and how does that flavor, like if someone how does flavor play into the Jewish community food, or is it just about the communing of togetherness?
Jews love food. I was raised with eating and food. Everything we did was surrounded by food, and a lot of it. You never ever left hungry, and there was always leftovers. It doesn't help that I grew up in a catering hall, so we had all that food too. But at home,
Right.
it carried to our house as well. All of my siblings and we grew up with that attitude. With like everything that we do is we're coming over, who's bringing bagels, who's we just in New York City, we got bagels before we left and brought some home with us on the plane. So I mean, it's a cultural thing that, I mean, I didn't grow up eating a lot of the cultural foods, lox, cream cheese, lox, salmon.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't eat that, so I didn't like those food. I like the bagels with butter. I didn't eat all the other stuff on it. And going vegetarian, vegan so early in life, I stuck with, obviously butter is vegetarian, so the bagels were already vegan, and the egg bagel as a vegetarian actually is vegetarian as well. So, but culturally, food matters. When someone dies in the Jewish religion, we have a shiva. It's anywhere between 3 and 7 days. Do you know what people do? They bring and send food for 3 to 7 days. So much food that my brother, when my dad died, mom died? One of them, I'm not sure which one, but one of them, when they passed away, he started making apple pies because we had so many fruit baskets.
Yeah.
that we didn't know what to do with all the fruit. Because
Mhm.
even though I'm a family, I have 3 other siblings. What are we gonna do with all this food? But, I mean, people brought pasta. People brought obviously a lot of baked goods, and the fruit baskets. Like I can't. So it's just that's just what happens. So flavor wise, I would never say outside of like somebody eating a filter fish,
Uh-huh.
like gross, but they put horseradish on it. So there's flavor. There's
So
Jewish food is not I
very
don't I don't
flavorful,
feel
you would
I
say?
don't feel it's gross. I feel like it's pretty well seasoned. People love matzo ball soup. However you make it, whether you make it vegan matzo ball soup, it's delicious. I mean, matzah itself is bland, but it's unleavened bread. But you take that, you make it into a matzo ball, right? Right, Marla? It's one of the best things
I'm
ever.
getting hungry. I'm getting
I
all
know.
flustered.
I totally want to
So,
make it.
so when you have that soup, when you so those are warm, comforting feelings. So is flavor? So flavor is really based on your culture. Let's say like Katya in Russia, there's a history like cabbage, and I mean there are a lot of tubers and grains, a lot of grains, heavy grains, the
Buckwheat.
barleys and the rye and things like that. Tell me how the cultural food in Russia influenced your flavor profiles as a vegan. How does that work in your life? You're on mute though. I think you're on mute, so unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I grew up eating porridge for breakfast. I used to hate it. Oh my gosh, there were two types. I was being fed like I think a type of grits because we were poor
Mm-hmm.
and that is supposed to like bulk up the child. So that was terrible. I hate grits until this day in any form and fashion. I think it's the most that and like butter, sour cream, mayonnaise are just the worst things ever. But mayonnaise salads on all birthdays. You had oat porridge or buckwheat porridge for breakfast, or pretty much
Mm-hmm.
buckwheat with anything. Think how much rice they eat in Asia. This is how much buckwheat we eat in Russia. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Rye bread. And then actually, we didn't eat that much meat. And my theory is this is a
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason why in the Soviet people were healthier, because they didn't have that much food. So if you eat a little bit less, I mean, it's proven by science. I think if you eat like 10% less than you actually need, you tend to stay leaner and healthier throughout your lifetime because most people gain about 1 to 2 pounds uh, a year. So that times however many years you live, like post college, well, we have a problem that we have in America then. Yeah, but there was scarcity of food. I do remember that when I was a kid. And then there were
Mm-hmm.
a lot of soy replacements. So to get hands on meat or fish, fish was a Thursday thing, like in a canteen at a factory or somewhere else in university. You do fish on a Thursday. I think they did some sort of a meat on some other day. And then most other days were meatless because it was just expensive, right? So we ate more soy, we ate other proteins. Not so much into beans, but even in my family, we probably ate meat like 3 times a week, maybe 2, 3 times a week. Not a day, a week. And that's not because everybody was environmental conscious or, life conscious. People were trying to freaking survive. And that was just how it was. It was really
Mm-hmm.
atypical to eat meat for breakfast. As I was growing up, I saw more meat everywhere because we could afford it, because there was more meat in the stores. Now when I visit, it's crazy how almost every single fancy restaurant serves you a burger. And I'm like, a burger? What is this, McDonald's? But now, like, everybody prides himself in doing the American thing. Everything is, slowly globalizing, Americanizing. So when I visit now, everywhere has a smoothie, which is weird for like an evening restaurant. Everywhere has a Buddha bowl. Everything has a burger. Sushi
Right.
is huge. Italian food is huge, but that was atypical. And I kind of didn't mind the way it was, but people saw deprivation in not being able to get their hands on meat or cheese or whatever the animal products.
All right. And so as we go into the vegan and that, thank you so much for sharing that. As we talk, I'm gonna say something. Then I see you, Helen. Want to make so all the what I'm hearing from you guys and what I'll add to African American, I'll add that in a minute. So food is different depending on what culture you grow up in, and that doesn't matter if it's if it's something very ethnically specific as a Jewish community or Russian or African American. This can be America. You might have in your different families. I'm going to go to you, Kimberly and Marla. I want you guys to jump in. What were your food experiences in the vegan as you went to your vegan journey, right? Because we already know kind of the history of the meat journey. When you went to the vegan journey, did you then veganize them, and did you include flavor? Was that very important as you made your transition? Because what we want to do is capture people in a cultural way as we're going, right, to the vegan side. And do you employ that thinking when you're talking to people from different cultures, what they might have experienced and how you can trick them in, how you can reel them in? So just you guys jump in that, but I want to get Helene first because she had her spoon up, and then Marla's after that.
So to keep with what Katya said, I love what yours. I love this is amazing, Dawn. Yeah, I love everything you're doing tonight. Stephen and I have conversations about people who like in other countries or other civilizations who like eat quinoa. Quinoa is incredibly healthy and one of the like a superfood, but that's what they were raised on because they couldn't afford meat. And they saw like say kings and queens or the really wealthy are eating animals. And their goal is to be like those wealthy people. How do we convince those people that what they're already eating is better than their aspirations to be like the wealthy ones? Which Katya just described Russia becoming unhealthy because they want to Americanize, which is like, which is awful. But the population is like, this is, we have to do this. This is what we need to do, And as for food being culturally and turning it vegan, flavor is incredibly important. One, you can't feed someone vegan food that tastes like shit. Because guess what they think? All vegan food tastes that way. I don't care what culture it is, what you're feeding them. You have to feed people food that tastes good. And I know you know how to do that, Dawn. I know how to do that. If I could feed you, I can convince you that you can eat this. And I'm not talking Impossible Burgers and Beyond Burgers. I'm talking about chickpeas and turning them into a curry. Taking tofu and making it flavorful. Because if you eat tofu out of the box, sorry, Katya, eat tofu.
Katya can do anything. Katya can eat anything out of the box.
I know, but if I fed that to a new vegan person, they'd be like, "You are out of your mind." Like can we cook it? It's silken.
Right.
I know.
My snack for the evening.
Right, is a head of cabbage. So
no, this is iceberg lettuce, but your point is exactly correct.
I mean, we need to do a bit more to get people. I mean, I can't. I Katya, as fantastic as that is, that you sit and eat peppers and the iceberg lettuce and all of that. But if I turn to a new person who's like eating hamburgers and French fries and bacon and mayo and butter and cheese and sour cream on their potatoes, and I say, here, eat a head of iceberg plain lettuce and silken tofu out of a box, they're going to laugh. But if we feed them flavorful food, like Dawn cooks and Marla cooks, and I know Kimberly cooks, you cook, and I know Katya cooks, and Laura does too. And so Laura does. Just think he doesn't cook as much, but Dilip does. Wow. That would be, the words out of their mouths would be, wow, this is vegan. Yeah.
And that's what it should be. So Marla, let me go to you, and then let me circle back to that on the African American scene and Latino scene and Indian. We have to represent Indian, and we want Kimberly. We got to kick Kimberly in. So Marla.
Okay, well, there's a lot of things that I want to say.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just trying to power through. First of all, I think I mentioned to you guys maybe before the call, this was my grandmother's rolling pin. And she was extremely influential and important in my life, and just kind of my hero. And so when I went vegan, it was there was a little bit of emotionally painful separation with her, because, as Helene mentioned, food is so entrenched in vegan culture, Jewish culture, and it's like when everything else was falling apart, you always, you could console each other over food.
Right.
So
Right.
food is a very emotional thing for almost all of us anyway, but I think that different cultures lean on it maybe a little bit more than others, you know. So anyway, when I went vegetarian and then some years later vegan, my grandmother was a little sad at first because I was, in my mind, her favorite grandchild. And so you know, there was a bit of sadness there. But I think she realized our connection was way deeper than me eating brisket or not eating brisket, you know. So,
Right.
you know, years later, I've learned how to, you know, create some of these dishes myself. And, you know, to me, it's imbued with the love I have for my grandmother, her spirit, her kindness, her warmth, her personality. So it's different food, but it has that same effect on me. So,
Right.
you know, that I turn to that. That's our comfort food. And so I was just going to also say that you know, Jewish food, when you're talking about Jewish food as a whole, like there's the Ashkenazi, which are more the European, and then the Sephardic, which is more European, I'm sorry, like Middle Eastern or South American. So there's all kinds of, and Jews have integrated into the different cultures they lived in. So there's all kinds of different flavors, but generally it's, you know, it's pretty basic comfort food. I think that becoming familiar with how other cultures eat and common grains and vegetables and spices and flavoring devices and stuff like that, I think that helps with your advocacy, because then you could talk about, oh, you know what, I made a great kacha, I'm not sure the right way to say it, but kasha varnishkas. Okay, but so
What's
like
the second thing? Hasha is good. That's
uh,
important.
varnishkas.
Varnishes. Yeah,
What's that?
It may just be
that's
Jewish rather than Russian. I don't know, but or maybe
kasha varnishes. Yeah, that's oh
anyway,
gosh, you
talk.
sent me
You could
back.
talk about how you have recreated that, like, but like the part of it is just getting familiar with how other cultures, you know, common foods where the different people live. And the last thing I was going to say is it's not only just the cultural milieu we grew up in, but also the time period we grew up in. Like I grew up in the 1970s where everything was, you know, my parents were not the 70s hippies. They were the, you know, parents who
Right.
bought stuff,
Right.
you know. So sometimes we have to take that into consideration too. Is this like the
Right.
familiarity of the time period someone grew up in. So anyway, that's all I'll say on the
Right. And that's when we'll get into age. But Kimberly's up. But I want Kimberly, before I bring you in, I want to read these comments. We have Susan Francis and Eco Naya that made a couple of comments, and then we're going straight to you, Kimberly. We're excited to hear from you. Okay, so Susan said, coming from an American family that always included a lot of homemade food at every event or gathering, I can say flavor and presentation is hugely important. Just going back to what Marla said and what we're all saying here, and what I assume that Kimberly's going to say, doesn't matter what culture you come from, there's some nuances, as Marla said, but it's very important to memories of family. So that's important. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. Eco Naya said hello to us earlier, but what she said now is, I was taught to cook quite young. Meals easy enough for a 7-year-old. Now I've discovered it's so easy to take time to learn the foods. So worthy, she said, to take time to learn the foods we consume, how they were brought up to the world, into the world, and are our foods actually serving us, how they're serving us. It's been a great journey having that transition in the kitchen, learning new recipes. I love to try and cook from different cultures and how fun that is. So thank you for Eco Naya, thanks for sharing that. That's really important. And that's really what the show is all about, the different flavors. And it's really, it would seem like I'm trying to put things in silos, but what I'm really trying to show you guys, as it's naturally, organically showing, we're all in the same thing. We all have those same commonalities. And I love that you said that, Marla. But Kimberly, if you would jump in, and then I'll circle back to that so I could talk about the age, and I can get back to the other two cultures that we left out, 3. But thank you so much for the people that have signed on and said those comments.
Yeah, so I guess the way that we ate when I was growing up, very like traditionally American. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm Irish and English, but that didn't really come into it a whole lot. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of like burgers and hot dogs and things like that in the summertime, and even like parties and stuff. There wasn't like this like real like flavorful food or anything. But there are a couple things. My dad grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and his family was not well off, not super, not like poor, but kind of in the middle, in between that. And there were 7 of them. So one of the things I always remember him making when we were kids is like macaroni and stewed tomatoes. So like the whole meal
Mm.
probably costs like $1.50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dessert that his family is known for is called icebox cake, and it's chocolate pudding, graham crackers, and bananas. And those were so easy to veganize. So like I still eat those things today, but in going vegan, not only did I learn, or vegetarian first and then vegan, not only did I learn how to cook, because I had no idea how to cook when I first decided to stop eating
Okay.
animals. um,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of different flavors and textures and just experiences I have had with food since making that change has been so significant. Like I've eaten things that I know I would never have eaten before
Right.
I decided to stop eating animals. So I know that sometimes people will think like, oh, but all my favorite foods are animal based and I can't give them up. Well, most of the things we can
Mm-hmm.
easily veganize now, but also if we can just open up a little bit, we're going to experience foods that we've never experienced before. And it is
Right.
so incredible and just such a fun adventure.
Right. That is so true. Okay, so I have you. Yep, I do have um next. So let me just say this real quick. I agree with you. I wanted to circle back before we got too far from it. Then we'll go right back to you, Katia. Um, what we were saying about following the rich people's palate and plate. This been going on since the times of Egypt and pharaohs, right? Where the people that had the most, you wanted what they had, even in whether it's in an English dynasty or empire or Egyptian. But the Irish potato famine, that's when they're most healthy in Ireland, right? And then when you brought back the meats, you brought back the disease, right? So it's I mean, just when you get down to it, and in Russia, for instance, it was cold. That's why buckwheat and rye and stuff could live, beets, because it was cold there. You couldn't do some of the other stuff there because it wouldn't grow there, right? And the fish were easy because you could go fishing in the ice hole and get it done. But the bottom line is what I'm saying is all these things that you're saying, Kimberly, all that you guys are saying, we need, the commonality of it all is the comfort feeling that we get from our different ethnic backgrounds. I can say in the African American community, there might be a little bit of a difference because of slavery and how we kind of lost our original food from the ancestral food because we forgot and we kind of have to jump back generations to get it. But that's notwithstanding, the whole thing is soul food came in, which is not really healthy because of slave food. And then with the Latino community, they had some things with beans and chiles and things like that. You have to hold on to some heritage. And because we go vegan, we got to experience all these different heritage foods that we would have never experienced had we not gone vegan together. And I think that we can impress upon people who are trying to get into the movement that they're going to have this whole new experience. They're going to taste things they've never tasted, and it's going to taste so good they're not going to believe it. They're going to go on a cultural journey, like with Aladdin on the carpet ride, right? And we can just get people on that journey. It just has to taste good, like Helene said. So, but we have to recognize people's culture. Like you don't go to the Black Baptist Church in the food desert community with matzo balls, right? Or matzo ball soup, right? You don't start there. You might get there, but you don't start there, right? So I guess as we all are out there advocating and we're vegucating out there, what do you do to in these communities? Like if you're going to communities, oh, I'm sorry, Katia, what do you do to? So I won't ask that question. I'll get to Katia, then I'll ask my question. Katia, go.
I'm sorry, I did not want to interrupt your question. Can you finish your
No,
question?
you
Because it
go.
might be relevant.
No, I can hold mine. You go.
Okay, yeah.
I won't forget.
I just wanted to respond to what Helene and Marla said. I mean, this is a wonderful snack. Iceberg lettuce is delicious. However, I do consider the fact that most of the people who say work with my team and they want to go vegan, lose weight, gain muscle, all of the above combined together. I understand that if they're coming from a diet that is burgers, beer, and pizza, and they're not gonna jump into eating boxes of tofu like me. Actually, I don't advise anybody does what I do. I do my own thing,
Right.
and then people observe it, and they're like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "Mind your own business." Uh, this may be true, but you know what? So yeah, if this works for me because of convenience, because sometimes I just need to get the food down because of my sport, like that's just my thing.
Hmm.
When people actually come, I try to ease them in. That's why I ask them to track what they eat. They write it down. I look at their stuff, and I design something that is kind of sort of similar to what they eat, but maybe like half vegan. And then they try it, and they're like, "Oh, this is not bad." And then we can go 75% vegan until they're fully vegan, if that's the goal. If going vegan is not the goal, unfortunately, then I can suggest healthier foods and still keep some animal proteins and other options in there as like a recommendation, but also give them awesome list of delicious vegan foods because usually they end up trying that. And if they're going for animal proteins and animal options, they can find that anyways in other sources. I'm the resource to, like you said, recommend stuff from different cuisines, stuff that I have veganized from Russian cuisine that has worked for me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, hey, you know what? You can try this. And a lot of them do. And a lot of them, even if they don't go vegan all the way, they at least include a lot more plants in their diet, which helps everybody. And then they tell their friends. So
Right. Right. It helps everybody from so many different aspects. So thank you for sharing that. Eco Naya agreed with you, Kimberly, and she was like gung ho on what you said. She was like, yeah, so she was really with you because we're all kind of saying the same thing. And yeah, Marla, I'll ask my question and then I'm gonna say so. Let me go ahead, Marla. Let me let that
Oh,
flow. Go
okay.
ahead.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of times people perceive veganism as restrictive because we're saying take this out and take these other things out. But what
Right.
it's the paradoxical fact is that it really expands and opens the possibilities, because
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like the first time I had Indian food when I was 16 or something. I was a new vegetarian. My mind was
Right.
blown by these flavors I'd never had before. And it's only gotten more so over the years. Is just like that. I think you have to come at it from an attitude of abundance rather than restriction and denial.
Right.
Because then you'll see that there's so many flavors, so many herbs and spices and vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. It's just you have to mentally shift so that you're not looking at it from a standpoint of deprivation. And I think in our culture, so much is framed from that diet mentality of restriction. So people bring that to the vegan thing.
Right.
So
So
that's why I try to encourage people to build on what they already
I got you,
like,
Helen.
you know,
Hmm.
build on, so what grains, whatever it is, what do you already eat? What do you already like? And just kind of try to expand from there. So.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, building on what they already like is very important. That's why that almost gets into culture. I'm gonna go to Helene but I want to say you're we're all saying the same thing. What I'm hearing is even though this is about your vegan flavor, this is really about finding the common spaces in our plates and sharing those in a way that is nuanced enough for someone to say it's familiar, right? So I think we're all on the same track, and we've got to be those kind of advocates out in the community if we're going to get people to stay vegan, reduce our aggregate cost of economic impact to the GDP, reduce our carbon footprint, and all the other things, and killing animals and everything else we're doing. But go ahead, Helene.
What people fail to remember or even understand is that if you ate meat unseasoned, it would be gross. And those seasonings that you put
Mm-hmm.
onto meat or chicken, fish, whatever it is, including vegetables, tofu and tempeh and seitan or whatever it is, the
Mm-hmm.
seasonings are across the board. So if you like garlic, you like pepper, you like curries, you like whatever favorite seasonings you have, you can season anything with that. And you can make broccoli taste good. You can make Brussels sprouts taste amazing with some maple syrup and balsamic vinegar. Roasted in the oven, you'll like a Brussels sprout. Don't deny you. Just try it.
Right. That is
There's
so true. Mm-hmm.
And
that's what
tofu.
and tofu takes on the flavor of anything you put in it because it's a sponge. It just get the water out of it first, it'll be even more flavorful. But that's what people fail to realize. If you don't season your meat, it's gross. And the seasoning is what makes things taste good. And the seasonings are vegan. So season your food the way you love it, and you'll love your food. And then, of course, Dawn, you make a very valid point that if I'm going to go to a Baptist church and feed them some vegan food, me bringing knishes might make them giggle. They would probably like them because it's potato, but it would really be like, is this what I'm like? No, don't tell me how to eat a knish. Tell me how to eat my collards that I put pork in, pork bone in
Right. Right.
when I baste them all day. Like how do I make my collards taste like my collards?
Right.
Well,
How do
Like
you
you
they're
add
can.
like
smoky?
normal. Right. How
Smoky.
do
Right. How
I
do I get
make
the
this
smoke?
smoky?
Right.
Right.
How do I do that? And yes, you can. And you would be the best person of this panel to do that. But you can bring foods that are familiar. Familiarity is the most important thing when you're trying to help people transition to a healthier way of living. Because if they can't get what they're familiar with on their palate, then it's going to be a lot harder to stay in that groove to move forward. And it doesn't matter if it's going to lower their blood pressure, eliminate their chance of heart disease and
Right.
stroke. It
Right.
doesn't matter. If it doesn't taste good, it doesn't matter.
We're not going to get them. If it
Yep.
doesn't, you're exactly right. If it doesn't taste good, we're not going to be able to keep them. And Katia, go.
Unless you give them the other results that they care about. Unless she sheds 20 pounds and then 20 more pounds, and then she starts competing in whatever the sport she likes, and she wins a medal, then she'll eat tofu out of the box like me. You
I
gotta
got
get
you.
them. It can be the
But
flavor, but it can be other stuff.
But
I
even
agree. It could
that,
be other stuff, but
Katja,
it's sustainable. Yeah. Go ahead, Marla.
I was just going to say, even that takes time, right? Like, so there's that transitional time
Right.
of the person getting into shape and losing weight and stuff like that. So, like, the idea that we just jump from one to the next is, not realistic.
Right.
But
But
it
the,
is
but,
like, I
but
think this is what Dawn was saying before, is like, if you can tap into your big why am I doing this? That will be something that will hold you up when you're doubting yourself or when you're kind of inconvenienced,
Agreed.
right.
Yep.
Right. And I agree with that too. But the seasoning, I'm going to go back to what Helene said. Again, no meat has no flavor. Fish has no flavor. Broccoli has no flavor. I mean, there's no, but no, actually it does. Broccoli, actually vegetables do have flavor. Carrots have flavor. Sweet potatoes have flavor. Corn is sweet and tasty, but if you're talking about nuancing flavors, I mean, animals just taste like nothing, right? So we got to just get people to teach them how to do it, and we've got to hook them. Once we get them, we have to hook them and reel them all the way in. We can't just leave them with the taste, and they enjoyed the Beyond Burger, and it's like yay, and then they're not going to know what to do when they go into the produce aisle. So I think it's incumbent upon us, especially when we're dealing with older communities. So I want to talk about ageism a little bit while we have a little more time, because while it might be easier to catch the eye of a 20-something or 30-something-year-old person or someone in their 50s like me or in these various ages, it's really harder to get that 60-something-year-old person who's lived their whole life, that 70-year-old person who's lived their whole life eating meat, who's all right with taking the Lipitor or whatever pills they're taking. What ideas do you guys have to help those folks to transition with that's important? That's when flavor is important in the Black auntie and granny community and grandpa. That's what I know. You've got to get them with that good old comfort food, or you're not going to get them. So what do you guys suggest for those who are listening, for the older demographic, to get them in? Is it flavor? What is it? Because they're not as concerned. It's a different concern at that point.
It's a combination of flavor and you have to go into cost. Because now you're looking at
Cost.
people who are on unlimited incomes most likely. So now you have to go into like an Ellen Jaffe Jones eating vegan on $4 a day type scenario where you can get decent food and easy to prepare with flavor. And again, just like you would go into a church, you have to go into a nursing home and you have to show.
Right.
And then you're all cultures because you have everybody in that nurse. Now you just have to go with a generic food, mac and cheese, lasagna,
right?
Something chili,
Mm-hmm.
something that everybody would typically like, that they would go, oh, I can eat this. How easy is it for me to make, and how easy for me to get the ingredients, and who's bringing those ingredients to? I mean, not everyone has a kitchen anymore, so now you're not just talking to people actually cooking for themselves. You're talking to the the homes, and what are they feeding people? Because now I think we go to like a school environment where the cost per person is probably crap and the food is probably crap. I mean, I have a friend whose dad got sick, was in the hospital, and he prepared food for his dad because they were giving him like a hamburger on a white bun, and I think he had a stroke. I was like, or a heart attack. He had one of the tops. But you can't. He was like, I can't feed. Like, Dad can't eat this. And he was vegetarian, and he like made taro and like he prepared like a whole meal to bring to his father because they don't. The food is absolutely horrendous. So there's even more here, which can be another show. It's the systematic issues of how we're feeding people in schools and hospitals.
And that might be another topic because it could get very deep on that alone. In the last 3 minutes, it probably won't be good. But we want to get Marla. But but it's an excellent point because we're talking about school systems. We're talking about these centers. So the very young and the very old are very fragile, and we need a show to talk about that and how we address those issues. But I was going to say something about what you said, Helene, but I'm going to go ahead because we have 3 minutes. Marla, and then Katya, and then if I can get it in, I'll get in what I was going to say.
I was just going to say, in addition, older people, as we all know, are not a monolith, and there are various factors that, feed into things. But I think that one of the things that makes meat more appealing to certain people is that it's just, you put it in the oven and it's done. You don't like, especially if you don't come from a cooking background, and I don't know how to flavor things, I don't know how to spice things. So if we can kind of try to make things as easy as possible, that's a good thing. The second, another aspect is, people not necessarily having transportation or driving themselves anymore, so that if we can get more vegan options more widely distributed to, beyond just, the usual places, that's good. A third thing is that isolation is a huge killer of seniors, that just becoming more and more isolated. So if we can engage people to becoming more involved, like not during pandemic times necessarily, but like, coming to a potluck or going to a group outing, that can help people. And I have known lots of seniors over the years of being vegan who found a sense of purpose that they never had prior in their lives once going vegan, and there's a degree of regret with that because they didn't tap into it sooner, but better late than never, right? So in being inclusive, welcoming, those things are helpful.
Thank you so much. So we have less than a minute. Katya, if you could keep it to 30 seconds, and then I'm going to end on the other 30, and then we're going to get it done.
Yeah, I basically had a question to piggyback off of Helene's about older people, what motivates them to go vegan, because if not the flavor, and if not something else. The cost could be one reason, but like older people are usually more well off, right? Like, so I was gonna ask you guys if what motivated your parents to go vegan or your older friends, because almost none of the older people I know care about going vegan for the flavor, for the cost, for
Health.
environment. They don't,
Health.
they're, oh, I'm gonna die soon.
I
if
agree. It's health.
Yeah.
My
Health?
mother went vegan for the health.
Right.
Okay, good.
It might
Anything
have
else?
a cardiologist who had a conversation with them, somebody, but so that's all the more reason why we have to make inroads with the medical communities, you know?
You guys are lucky.
And I want to, before I say you say anything, Helene, I want to say what Iko Naya said. I stay true to my values. It is difficult to advocate for someone who is too comfortable in a reserved lifestyle. Thank you, Naya, for that. I understand completely. It's hard to kind of pull teeth. And then Robin Lee Garber, thanks for. She said this was a nice discussion. Thank you. And Vegan Street said, "Hey, my friend." So we've had a lively discussion, and Helene, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to you. What I'll say, and I'll end because I know Helene's probably going to take us out. And I want to get Kimberly more involved, but we're out of time. But what you said was great, Kimberly. And what we're hearing from this conversation is probably could have more conversation about this because we pulled back a lot more layers than just flavor. We talked about affordability. I wanted to jump back on what it was. I wish I'd asked that 30 minutes earlier so that Helene could have gone a little. We could have all gone a little deeper into affordability and how that impacts how you can go to Dollar General and literally make something good because they have herbs there for dollar and they also have beans. So even though it's terrible, they can do it. It can be done. I've seen it done. So Helene, thank you for the time. Thank you guys for participating. I don't want we're already a minute 32 over. I'm super anal about time. So thank you for letting me host you today.
Amazing. Well,
You
thank
did
you,
a
Dawn.
fantastic job.
Fantastic
Thanks, Dawn.
job.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw you all
Thank
into
you.
the green room. There we go. Bye, Marla. Bye, Katya. Bye, Kimberly. And thanks, Iko Naya. All of your points are valid, and I'd like to hear your words of encouragement. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your watching and participating. And Robin Lee, thank you also for thank you for the discussion. We really appreciate it. So again, we are back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same channel, all of our social media, and you can watch this on the Vegan Stew YouTube channel. And you can follow along and, of course, go to virtualvetress.com to enter the contest to win one of the 7 prize packs. And let's close out by just reminding everyone to be kind. Thank you, Susan. Really appreciate your support in everything. But let's just remember to be kind. And it is still a strange world that we are living in. And there's still a pandemic, and we still need to wear masks, and we still need to, we're pro-vaccination on this channel. We want you to be healthy and aware, but again, to be kind, because you never know what somebody's going through that you're interacting with. And it's a really weird world. So take care of you. We will see you next week. And I don't know what the topic is, but it'll be a good one. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.